Good afternoon, friends and colleagues from Israel and Rwanda and around the world. My name is Professor Galia Tsabar from the African Studies at Tel Aviv University. And I would like to start by thanking all of you that opted to join us today for this unique session. We're gathered here thanks to a joint effort between Tel Aviv University African Studies, Renewed Memory Organization in Israel, JRJ in Rwanda, and the University of Mount Kenya to reflect upon the genocide against the Tutsi that started exactly today, 28 years ago, on April 6th, 1994. At this point, I would like to say that just 2 days ago, Professor Benjamin Neuberger, an Israeli scholar of African studies, passed away. He was a son of Jewish survivors of the Holocaust and one of the leading scholars of African studies and humanitarian approach. He wrote extensively on the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, and his book about the genocide was translated to dozens and dozens of languages. May his memory be blessed. As it is exactly 28 years ago that the first official act of the genocide against the Tutsi was performed, we would like to start this meeting with a moment of silence commemorating the victims. May their souls, men, women, and innocent children rest in peace. May we never forget. Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Sanctus. Has he joined us, Pini? Or Yaeli?
Sure.
Is Sanctus on board with us?
I think not.
Sorry? Mr. Sanctus, are you with us from JRJ?
I think we will continue.
Okay, maybe later he would like to lead a short prayer in memory of the victims. So without further ado, I would like to ask Dr. Irit Bak, the head of African Studies at Tel Aviv University, the co-organizer of the joint course between Tel Aviv University and Mount Kenya University in Rwanda, to say a few opening remarks about women and genocide. Irit, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the honor for opening this important session. I would like also to thank my colleagues and at Renewed Memory Organization at the Mount Kenya University for this joint adventure, which was very important, and of course to our students at both universities. Thank you so much. It was a very enlightening experience. Sweeney Hunt, founder and chair of the Institute of Inclusive Security, remembers an early meeting she had with the President Paul Kagame. She asked him if there is a difference in how men and women respond in the aftermath of the genocide. Women stepped out and rolled up their sleeves when men were destroyed emotionally and psychologically, he told her. Well, I'm not too sure if this observation in general is generally applicable, yet it intrigued my curiosity to explore the way that women who survived genocide were challenging their horrifying experience into the process of building post-genocidal lives, both in the personal and in the national levels. At the personal level, this interest always relates to my own life story. As the life experience and the story I have been told by my mother, my grandmother, and my aunt, all were Holocaust survivors, were interwoven into my life and my family life, as well as into my professional choices and my research interest. Professor Chana Yablonka, a famous Israeli historian and researcher on the topic of Holocaust survivor in Israel, claimed against the common assumption that Holocaust survivors were poor and unproductive members of the society. Opposed to this assumption, she argued that the contribution of this survivor to the building of the Israeli society and nation was phenomenal. Many of them were, for example, the backbone of the Israeli developing nation in fields such as culture, science, and others. I believe that the same can be argued regarding the genocide survivor in Rwanda, and in particular regarding women, as this is the interest of our seat here. Rwanda has the highest percentage of women appointed to government in the world, 64% according to my data. I hope that it's still relevant. And in comparison, United States has only 18%. Women contribution is not limited just to politics, but women are also represented in the booming fields of economy, education, personal security, and other fields of the Rwandan state and society. At the same time, it is important to remember that the wounds of this horrifying event are still there, and it will take a long time, maybe forever, until it can be healed, both for the survivor and for the descendant in the generation to come. Organizations such as Avega Agehozo, that was founded in 1995 in order to help widows who survived the genocide and reintegrate them in, economically and psychologically as an active contributing member to the society, just one example to the effort made in the post-genocidal Rwanda. Moreover, it remains crucial not to forget and to allow these women to tell their personal stories, as well as commemorate it at the national, academic, and social media platform, as doing, for example, your organization of Renewed Memory. This gathering is our modest contribution to the continuing effort to let women's voices be heard, remembered, and commemorate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Irit Bak, for this enlightening introduction. As Sanctus from JRJ has joined us, so we would be grateful if you would lead us all into a short prayer in memory of the victims of the genocide against the Tutsi. Sanctus, please.
Hello, everyone. I think you're hearing me well.
Yes.
I'm very sorry for the delay. I was somehow busy, so I'm happy to be with this platform. Thank you.
Sanctus, are you going to lead a short prayer, or you have decided not to?
Okay, let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for your unfailing love for us, your blessing and goodness. We thank you for your amazing power and work in our lives. We thank you that you are able to bring hope through even the toughest times. Thank you that you are always with us and will never leave us. Our hearts are filled with great happiness on this event. Please guide it. Dear Lord, we also ask you to open our eyes to see the gifts you have given us in our life. We love you and we need you this day and every day. We give you praise and thanks In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Sanctus, for this. It's my pleasure to invite Mr. Pini Sneer, the chair of Renewed Memory Organization here in Israel, to say a few words about the organization and about its unique activities both in Israel and in Rwanda. Pini, the floor is yours. And the time clock is ticking and I'm the timekeeper.
I will make it. Thank you. All right. So hello, everybody. It's my pleasure being here. I'm very excited. And my part will be quite short. Will be continued by my colleague, Mr. Yaron Reshef, who will be doing some explanation about video clips you will be seeing in a moment. But first, let me introduce Renewed Memory. So Renewed Memory is a voluntary organization that promotes the memory of victims of racism and crimes against humanity. Concentrating on teens as the key carriers of remembrance, our program helps youth to create video content that both preserves and revives memories of the victims. The young people who take part in the program research events such as Holocaust and the genocide against the Tutsi. They learn about events and their implications and receive professional guidance to create a meaningful visual message by way of short videos, shot and edited using their personal cell phones. These short videos are then distributed over social networks. Renewed Memory makes way for an open discussion about the memory of crimes against humanity. Using contemporary visual media language makes the difficult topic of racism and crimes against humanity relevant to young people and allows them to understand it through personal experience. So you may ask yourself, how am I connected? You know, it's always personal. So this is a certificate de voyage. You can see in the picture my grandmother, my grandfather, and also my mother. But the most important person in this picture was never photographed there. He's missing. His name is Akiva. He's the elder brother of my mother, and he died when he was 20 months old in a concentration camp by the name of Transnistria. He made out of hunger. And this is my personal story. As a third generation of Holocaust survivors, I could not keep the educational program of Renewed Memory within Israel, as it has lots of impact and can help others also. So starting last year, we created the Renewed Memory program in Rwanda, where we worked in Mount Kenya University, where you can see here some students from Mount Kenya and also some students from Israel. What we do is basically we create educational value-based infrastructure, we guide learning methods, and we provide the youth tools to deal, to cope, and to learn about these topics. 3 goals: to create a learning culture, to promote an open discussion of accepting others and preventing racism, and to develop tools to enable the research and the creation of the work. As said, the students prepare video content, which is based on testimonials that they search for, and then create a short video clip that presents the impact of the content on themselves. Those video clips then are shared in the, sorry for the background noises. These video clips are shared in the networks, social networks. We work on lots of platforms, and here is some information about our work that was done last year. We worked in 7 schools. We had 120 students in Israel, in 1 university in Rwanda, and altogether they have created 30 video clips. you can see the photos, the proud students at the end of the program, both in Israel and in Rwanda. This year, we work in 11 schools in Israel, 350 students, and we are going to upload very soon 65 new video clips close to the Holocaust Memorial Day, which will happen at the April 27. Next year, we plan to work with 20 schools and additional 2 classes in Rwanda. So this is our presence in the networks, and this presentation will be shared with you, so you can go and then look for all the information there. So this is about renewed memory, but I'm sure that you are very interested to know what we're doing. So what I will do now, I will share in the chat 2 links for 2 video clips that were created in Rwanda. And I invite you to look at both of them, one after the other, and then come back to us. And Yaron Reshef, my colleague, will guide us through those videos. So I'm sharing now the first link. The clip is called 20 Days in the Toilet. And just after it, I'll share the next one, and then you can just watch them. So this is the first. The second one is called Denial Due to Shame. So please go into those links, watch the videos, and we're waiting for you just after you finish them. Thank you.
Yaron, I think that people are back and we can continue. Would you like to say a few words about the movies, or we are continuing?
Of course, but Pini, I need the PowerPoint presentation. Pini? Irit or Pini, you have my presentation on your side.
Eli, יש לך?
No, I don't have, but Yaron, you can share with us your screen.
1 minute. 1 minute. Pini?
Yaron, you can unmute yourself, please.
פיני אומר שהם לא סיימו לראות שיש שני סרטים.
הזמן עבר, ואנחנו קצת לחוצים בזמן, אז אני בכל זאת מציעה אני לפחות הספקתי לראות את שניהם, אז...
Okay, Pini, I need the presentation, please.
Yaron, because we want to respect the speakers from the Rwandan side.
I fully understand, but it's okay.
So, okay.
Okay, sorry for the delay. Hello, everyone. And I will do it very short. You saw just very short video clips. I will say about 3 minutes each. I will not go into what you saw because the plot of the story, or what we call professionally the text, is less important in my opinion. I want to talk about the subtext, and the subtext that related to different perception of the female character. In each movie, there is a main female character, and I will go through the subtext of that character. The subtext professionally is related to the things that the creator in a way is doing, but sometimes unconsciously, and things that the designer, the environments, and other people that are doing things support or doesn't support the main plot, which is the text. Second slide. Opinion in the second slide. Okay, the way we are doing it, usually, it's not like looking into a video, but looking into the details and compare how these details support the plot or the idea. Now, the two videos were not done to teach us or to show us different female characters. But it's super interesting to take these two main characters and to look how they behave, at what are the components of the subtext that support their personality. So let's do it very briefly. We have two stories or two videos. One is Denied to Shame, and the other 20 days in the toilet. First thing, these two videos were done today. One is related to 1994. We're talking about 28 years ago. So normally everything will look different from today. The other one was reflecting the present. This is important to know. So we believe that the woman will be a little bit different 28 years ago, the behavior, the personality, everything will be different. First thing that we found that in the night of to shame, there is a name. We know how to call this lady or this young lady. She is Boo. On the other end, on the 20 days in the toilet, there is no name. I will say that there is a name, and I will give the lady a name. She is the anonymous mother. Because her personality, through this short video, and we are talking about 3 minutes video, her personality is reflecting motherhood, protective, sensitive, but she is semi-passive. We know from this short clip that she lost her family, and in a way, in the end of the clip, the happy end is, you can see down on the right side of the presentation, the happy end that she has a son. Of course, it's not her son. The two of them are survivors, but in a way, she made her destiny. On the other end, Boo is absolutely the negative or the positive of the first character. She is a leader. She is assertive. She talks directly. She is dominant. And I will say even that she is aggressive, because the few seconds that she is arguing, she is pushing, she is hitting. She knows what she wants, and surprisingly or not, she achieved it in the end. So other subtext that support this idea is where the movie was taken. In the 20 days in the toilet, it was done in the village, in an area, in a scene that is related directly to the genocide. And on the other one, it's in the town, which reflects again a modern life, which is a kind of a revolution of 28 or evolution of 28 years later from the genocide. Now, important subtext is also the clothes. How these two ladies, what they were. So, not surprisingly, in the village, the anonymous mother is wearing traditional clothes. And not surprisingly, in the night to shame, it's a bit more sophisticated. In the first act, there are two scenes in that video. In the first scene, she wearing, I will call it student clothes, and it's a kind of a shirt and jeans. The jeans in a way symbolizes the Western culture. And on the second scene, she's wearing a dress, a red dress, because she is now in a way in the process of victory. She succeeded to change her boyfriend and to make him recognize the genocide. I will take two things that I didn't write, but you can find them in the first presentation and in my first slide and this slide. It's what written, and I believe it's subconscious. What is written in this specific minute in the two movies. So in the 20 days in the toilet, it's written, "Don't worry, son, I will be your mom." On the other movie, almost on the same place, it's written, "I understand it is okay to be ashamed, but not to deny." So if you take this short stick, and I try to do it the shortest, there are about 120 subtext like this that reflect the two women figures. Now, honestly, I'm sure, almost sure, that the creators didn't understand what they are choosing and doing. I know it from personally, from my experience when I do things. There are a lot of subconscious in this work, but this tool enables you to understand in a way what happened in Rwanda in these 28 years that passed. You have a Western fighter on one hand, and you have a traditional anonymous mother on the right hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yaron. Thank you, Pini, for sharing information about renewed memory and choosing these very interesting and very different two clips. And thanks for sharing your presentation, Pini, with us for the future. So anybody that wants to go and see the other movies produced can see them at his or her free time. I'm really happy now to have the opportunity to invite Laurette Anelli to speak about, and the title of her presentation is Wet Under the Rainbow. Laurette, please, the floor is yours for 15 minutes.
Thank you. I'm by the names of Akariza Laurette Anelli, as they said. I'm going to talk about this What's Under the Rainbow. It's my book. I'm going to connect this Rwandan youth silence with the resilience. Across Rwanda, the shifts of focus and programs catered to the youth has its unique experiences. After 28 years after genocide against Tutsi, ex-perpetrators are being released from prison, and now they have to reintegrate in the society that is completely new and have been transformed. As the result, spaces for building peace are being initiated by youth, who were not there in the genocide. But this transmission of trauma that is true and real, and by scientists, by every means they can approve it, helps them to connect with the history and to maintain it and preserve it, which is resilience. And this passing down of trauma through their parents. Everyone's trauma is unique in Rwanda, and to their experiences and family, their wounds are still open and vivid enough that their children could catch it and even transform it to transfer it to their children. Complex questions are emerging at a rate that is difficult to come up with the answers, and parents and survivors cannot face their wounds alone, which is why young people need to be equipped with the sufficient knowledge and understanding to sparkle the meaning and healing conversations between their mates and between their elders, who are their parents. We know that the youth have been the part of development in the world, but this is a very hard question and a very hard task for them to preserve the memory and to maintain the memory of their parents and still be equipped with the knowledge to explain it to the younger generation to them. which is the third generation to the genocide against Tutsi, 1994. This book, Wet Under the Rainbow, is a illustration and self-expression of the stories of trauma of young people in Rwanda who are surviving in silence. The reason why I actually mentioned this silence is because those battles are not being discussed in public. They are fighting and there is resilience. Everyone is fighting and everyone is succeeding on her own, on his own, but there is no that common popularity of discussing this issue of transmission of trauma between friends and between the mates, the peers, because it's not well known between them through educational schools discussions. So this trauma and these battles are being fighted alone, which is the courage and the resilience that the youth of Rwanda have to maintain, and later discuss this with their mates and their peers so that this trauma can be held. And as young people, we continue to embrace practices and find the process within memory preservation. It is through youth leadership, through this art creation and preservation of memory, through songs, through writings, through artificial works, that we continue to preserve the memory for these coming years, but embracing commonly on resilience. It's so hard to say resilience when you're young and you've not been in the genocide against Tutsi 1994. But it's also a sign that resilience is vivid and resilience can be said and can be educated. If I preserve the memory of my parents, if I preserve the memory of Rwanda and I was not there, that means that my children or my children of my children will do the same, will embrace that culture. So these silent virtues will one day not be silent.
Laurette, please unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Laurette, please unmute. Okay.
Sorry. This Wet Under the Rainbow have a name. I can say that it's but because being wet under the rainbow is an opposite of being resilient. It's the opposite of not fighting, of being wet when there is a rainbow, when there is hope, when there is everything that you can need to be dry, to be warm, but you're still wet under the rainbow. I was remarking and I was tackling on the issue that young generation youth have to reconnect with their history, have to reconnect with their memory and take preservation of memory as their duty and be on the front line in preserving this memory for the future generation and for their own, for Rwanda and for those Tutsi victims that was killed innocently. So for them to rest in peace knowing that their grandchildren are there, and for those who are being out of the prison to know that there is young generation Rwandans that are developing the country, that are preserving the memory, that will be like a sign to show them that it's not easy. It's not like in the past. They have to sit down and learn and change for the future, for their grandchildren who are there, and this collaboration between the children from survivors and children from perpetrators will be a good sign of resilience. I'm talking about resilience. When I say transmission of trauma, I come back to the resilience, because if trauma can be transmitted, also resilience can be transmitted. If our parents are the ones who stopped genocide against Tutsi in 1994, then that resilience, that effort, that energy, and that patriotism can be transformed in their children. And from that, we'll say transmission of trauma, and we say transmission of resilience for Rwandans. For this generation, we say to their children, we have been transmitted from our parents' legacies, but in those legacies, there are resilience, that we continue to fight and we continue to preserve those memories, that in those 50, 100, and million years, genocide against Tutsi, those Tutsi victims will be remembered and honored, and always remembered in their honor that they deserve, because they were killed innocently. So this silence will one day end, and transmission of trauma will be talked about all over the world as a sign of resilience, as a sign of transmission of legacies, but end up in resilience, which Rwandan youth are starting to do. Rwandan youth are raising up their voices through many arts, are raising up their voices through writings, creating spaces for youth. And this gives hope, and this gives a clear image that in the future, resilience will be our song, will be our anthem, which is very good. Thank you very much, and I wish you will not be wet under the rainbow, and you continue your journey of resilience through your journey, and you transmit it through your generation as the trauma is being transmitted through us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorette. Thank you. And may you always be dry under the sun. I really, I truly enjoyed and learned a lot from your talk, and I'm sure that there will be some questions later on after the presentations will end. So please, if you may stay with us. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Lorette. Thank you. Unless Dimitri has gone on. No, Yaeli? No. Okay. So we will go directly to Ines. Ines is one of the students participating in this program. And Ines, please, the floor is yours.
Ines, if you would like, I can share the screen, or if you want to, you can share it.
It's fine, you can share the screen.
Ines, the floor is yours, please. Ines, please unmute yourself.
Yes, I was relocating. The place I was in was very noisy, so I needed a place that is not noisy.
Okay, so we all hear you now and we can see the presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. As you've heard, my names are Ines Rutaise Umurerwa, And I'm going to be sharing my mother's story during the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. And it also sums up my family's story in whole, and what I've learned from my story, my family, and from all the stories that they have shared. So I would request to move slides. So this is a story I remember vividly, but I do remember some stories that my mom would sometimes tell us, and she would, being young, my mother used to tell us stories about what happened during the genocide against the Tutsi, but she would bring up the stories during the commemoration week for some reasons that we never ever knew about. We were always interested in listening to what she had to tell us, and she had a lot of stories to share. So my mother never lined up everything on how it happened in order. Whenever she would remember a certain thing, she would immediately start a story, and she would show us pictures of her late family members that were massacred during the genocide. We at least grew up not in oblivion of what happened and knowing how my mother and her family survived. To say the least, my father also managed to play a part in educating us on what happened through films. He could not tell us stories of how he survived, but he could only share films and books so that we can always be educated on what happened. If anything that my family has done is to make sure that we know everything, we know all about our history, and that we educate ourselves on what happened and why it happened. Can we move slides? So this is a small story of how my mother faced divisionism at a very young age. So divisionism in the late ages and during and before the genocide started was a tactic used by perpetrators to make sure that all the Tutsis have been massacred. So at a very young age, I thought divisionism was only introduced during the genocide. But my mother told me that at a very young age, she was probably 8 or 10, while she was still in primary school. That is when they started divisionism in her school during the attendance time that they have before they start their lessons. The teacher would read all names of the students and would indicate the Hutus to go on the side of the class and the Tutsis to go to the other side of the class. And then the counting would proceed and they would be told to go back in their seats. So that will be done in a process of knowing how many Hutus they had in class and how many Tutsis they had in class. So for doing so, they would divide the students in 2 groups. It would happen every morning, and my mother had no idea why they would do all that. All she knew that was that her father told her that she was a Tutsi, and that was all. So if I remember well, one day when the attendance time arrived, they called all students, and my mother remained alone on the Tutsi side. Hearing about that story, it even made me very sad, thinking about a 10 or 8-year-old standing on one side alone with no other colleagues by her side. I can only imagine what was running through her head during that time. She was very sad, of course, as a child, seeing all her colleagues not on the same side. It was a very sad event to see. Can we move on the next slide? So what I gained from her story, that same story, while listening to 12, but I really was devastated. I wondered why and how adults for supposed to protect children from anything could do such a thing, creating trauma in children. Unfortunately, I don't remember the whole story, but well, it was because it was a while back, but either way, it was a sad story. We learned about divisionism and genocide ideology. We learned that it was a tactic used by perpetrators to massacre all the Tutsis. From what I read and learned, I always thought no one should have gone through such a dehumanizing event. Can we move to another slide? Memories through visiting memorial sites. If there is anything my mom made sure of is visiting memorial sites that she can remember of, especially the ones that she fled to during the genocide. So to be sure that we all know about her story, my mother would always take us to the Nyanza Genocide Memorial Site, as she would tell us that that is where she fled with her aunt and younger nephew, who was one at the time. So during the genocide, my family divided themselves into many groups. They lost contacts of each and everyone. So my mom managed to flee with her aunt and her 1-year-old son. And at one point, after so many months, she got reunited back with her cousins, her aunts, and her uncle, who was her legal guardian. Basically, all her family fled to Nyanza, saying that it was where she resided before the genocide. Before the genocide, she was living in Nyanza, in the Nyanza sector. She was still a high school student when the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi happened. My mother and her aunt, who carried her 1-year boy on her back, fled to Lycée Notre Dame. It's a high school that is situated in the district of Nyarugenge. It's a school that still exists to this day. It's a school that managed to hold a big number of people who were fleeing during the genocide. Coming to Nyanza because they were told that it was much safer. So they fled to that place because they were told the place is much safer, but at one point the place became very insecure and they had to relocate. Again, I'm telling this story bits by bits as I remember a few details. Can we move to another slide? So this is also another story. It says pretty privileges and the worst outcome of it. My mom was a very beautiful woman, and she is still, and it was even more during her time when she was still young. Every man in her neighborhood wanted to date her, but she was a hard head. She never gave them any chance due to rejecting all the men. When the genocide against the Tutsi happened, all the men from her neighborhood fought to attack her first and rape and then kill her. They would say that umukogo kwa karate ni utuzaheraho, but which means the daughter of Karate. Karate was her uncle, who was her legal guardian by the time. He was her legal guardian because my mom used to live in Uganda before, and she came to Rwanda when she was 4, leaving her mother behind and siblings in Uganda. At one point, her father, she came to Rwanda with her father, and at one point, her father went back to Uganda to her wife and her siblings, and then she was left here in Rwanda with her grandmother to live with her grandmother and her father. So that's how she ended up being taken by her uncle and living with her grandmother and her personal family. Can we move to another slide? So woman paid price for my mother's beauty. Due to her pretty privileges, she was the most hunted girl in the village, and all because of that, she didn't want to date all the men in her village. So when the genocide against the Tutsi started in her village, called Karembure, also a girl who looked just like my mother. The girl was killed by the genocide perpetrators. She was mistaken for my mother. And by the time that happened, my mother was witnessing the whole scene and she was hiding nearby. The woman never left my thoughts, and also the fact that my mom survived a massacre and another person had to pay the price of her being beautiful. The stories my mother told us were to let us know what happened and never let us live in the oblivion of what happened. She never left out anything. She took us to every memorial site she knew about and made sure we would go to all the commemoration nights with her. She did so for us to learn about our history and to never deny what happened. Can we move to another slide? A memory through films. Due to trauma, a lot of parents never wanted their children to watch films about the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. In my family, my parents were never against that. We watched several movies with the purpose to educate us more and harnessing the knowledge we already had on what happened. I remember when I was still in primary school, my colleagues would tell me that they are not allowed to even talk about what happened during the genocide in their families. So it was like a taboo to even bring out the topic. Some parents just wished they never talked about what happened again, and they just chose not to educate their children on what happened. It was really a great initiative for us to have an image on how things went, and also a chance to have an explanation on what happened. We were still young, but not an excuse to not learn about what happened. Even though I would learn about what happened in my family and also in class, we had a privilege to learn about the history of what happened, to get educated more, but my family entered more deeper to explain, to give us a more detailed image of what happened. Can we move to another slide? Now, looking back on or dealing with past events. As a human being, what happened in Rwanda can touch you emotionally, being young or old. There will always be a part of you that will be touched emotionally. Hearing about my mother's stories, I was mad, disappointed in humanity, and angry. But learning and getting to know why it happened gave me a strong perspective on what unity means to humanity, and when destroyed, what unity can lose. Looking back on what happened, I learned that unity is a very strong weapon, and if maintained, nothing can hinder the peace of humans. I also learned that fear of opening up about what happened can lead to denying it or even living in fear that it will happen again. Can we move to another slide? I used to live in fear that history can repeat itself. But if one thing I learned is that my country is strong and united, my country will never allow what happened to happen again, and my country values reconciliation more than anything. And for us to rebuild and renew there should be unity and reconciliation. I also learned that not talking about what happened is letting your children and the next generation living in oblivion and unaware of their history. In Rwanda, there has been a very remarkable change in everything, and there has been a very, very good initiative to learn, to educate the younger generation on what happened, and also to making sure that no one denies what happened. We are learning, we are still learning. We've learned through films, through education in school, through books, and through having conversations with our families. We've learned a lot about what happened and why it happened. And there is for now that reconciliation, we saw that reconciliation is possible and it will happen, and it has already happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ines. It was a very powerful presentation, the power of history, of memory, and the fact that your parents chose to speak with you openly, and what you as a young woman gained from these stories, this openness and the power of knowledge. And I think that nowadays, when there are reports of what is happening, the atrocities happening in the Horn of Africa, the Amhara soldiers against the Tigrinian, and in a very different place around the world between the Russians and the Ukraine, and slogans like "never again" are just thrown up in the air. But as you said, humanity can be very cruel, and human beings can still be very cruel to each other. I think that parents like you are fortunate to have that speak about it and educate within the family is probably one of the strongest weapons against evil atrocities and the violence that we are experiencing around us. So thank you very much, Ines, and I'm sure there will be future questions. I'm really happy, thank you, that Dimitri has joined us, Dimitri Sisi. Dimitri, can you open your microphone and say hello to us, and maybe your camera as well?
Hello.
Hi, Dimitri, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hi.
Hi. Okay.
Can you see me?
Yes, we see you, and we're happy to see you. And your presentation entitled "Do Not Accept to Die." So Dimitri, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and happy to see you all. I'm so honored to be part of this conversation as a part of Kwibuka 28. Thank you so much for inviting me. For me, as for the title, I was actually going back into my surviving journey during the genocide against Tutsi 28 years ago, and looking around and looking into all other stories around. I have just discovered that we all made somehow, willingly or not, but we made an effort to not die. You know, like that spirit of holding on life and developing mechanism of surviving, and just say, I won't die, I will be there and I will tell the story. So that is all about the book, but it goes beyond the genocide, starting into my childhood up to now, and from all the sad moments, from all the sorrows, develop something of motivation, especially for the young generations. And through the genocide, through the struggles, through all up and downs, become a strong living person who can actually, who can shine, who can dream again, who can restart again and again and again, and never give up on life. That's just about my book. Thank you.
Olive, Dimitri, would you like to share some of the main themes of your book, the main ideas and the reasons that brought you to write your book? Would you share that with us?
The book actually has 10 chapters, and unfortunately I didn't prepare anything about the book because I was just about to tell about the artificial families and reflect a bit on gender and genocide.
So
and the silence.
So please choose to reflect about what you prepared perfectly well.
Yes. As for the book, I think I will make another. I will invite you for another presentation. I will be in touch with Bini, and we will talk about it. But as for today, My theme was initially when we started, my theme was the artificial families into all these genocide survivors organizations, ILG and GILG and others. But that is taking all of us back to a role of a mother, a role of a young girl in a family. And that is a role of putting people together. That is a role of caring. That is a role of spreading love and hope. And that is a role of reunification. So that is why we have what we call artificial families. Going back into the story, when ILG was created in '96, this is survivors student associations all of the young boys and the girls were just student orphans without any hope for tomorrow, without any support from family. So the idea of putting a group of 10 or 15 or 20 young boys and girls together and trying to restore that rhythm of living into a family. That is why we call it actually an artificial family, because Simon will be a father and Alice will be a mother. So these two are almost the same age as of their children. But putting together in a structure of a family was a great idea of reuniting them again, and also creating that spirit of family that was just destroyed during the genocide. So we would have a meeting, a family meeting. We will sit down and create a name, and all those names of our families were all about patriotism, bravoure, determination, love, history, that kind of a motto you give to your family. Someone would just met and create a family and decided to live together. So having a father and a mother was a great thing, so that the children feel more comfortable having to report and having to receive consolation, family care, visit from your father or from your mother, who are actually same age. But this was a serious base of a family. And in that case, the mother, being your age or not, she would feel responsible of you. You could be in the different schools, but during the holidays, she will make sure she goes to each and everyone. She will make sure if you have an issue, she's actually caring. She's calling you. She's going beyond and even wanting to look into your reports. Like, why do you fail in French, for instance? Can you have a discussion? What issues are you having in geography? So that was a kind of mothering, or showing your friends that you go beyond just being colleagues or being age mate. You are adding a role of mother. You are adding a role of father. You are being more responsible for them. And some years later, one would be wanting to get married. So the mother and the father would play that role of parents. We'll call around, we go organize things, we go organize events. So that was a long-term relationship that started into ILG, and until now. You see, I'm 50 and I have a father, and my father is only 46. So it's when I meet him in a town, when I have an issue, I always want to talk to him. His name is Peter, but I call him Daddy. So I say, Daddy, do you know I have an issue, this and this? Can we have a coffee? That is a long-term relationship that was developed because of all those mechanisms we developed to cope with the genocide's consequences. And also, I see that artificial families as really a success story, because it helped us much to survive. It helps us much to sit and redefine ourselves, and sit and try to fill the gap. We have many people who were left alone, no father, no mother, no sisters, any siblings. But when you are surrounded by in that family structure, you don't think a lot on your problems, because you have sisters and brothers on same I can call it on same age, on same categories, but with different other issues. So you tend to spend a lot of time finding solutions together than being alone or feeling alone. So we had many kids from the rural areas having issues with their lands, but because we are not all of us coming from the same regions, we would sit together and try to help. We say this week we are all going to work on this issue of our friend, our brother, Patrick. And then we call over, we seek support. We go knock to the doors of authorities and find a solution. So it was, and still is a success story to share all over the world. And I thank God it happened, because it really helped us to stay together and work together and survive together. And now we are all mothers and fathers with, with the children, with responsibilities, and all that we can achieve. With at least we are not feeling lonely. We have that structure of family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dimitri, for sharing with us these unique mechanism of coping with issues of loss and misery and loneliness, and creating what you called artificial families. And I'm sure that you were struggling with the name, because artificial has something very untrue and ungenuine. And what you described is so genuine. Maybe in Kinyarwanda it sounds better, and because what you really described is something very warm and loving and caring, like an organic family. And I'm sure it gave you a lot of strength, as you said, to not accept death.
Yes, that's true. And when we lost everything, when we lost everyone, the first tendency, or the first the normal way was to feel alone or around, and feel discouraged, and not and lose that that motivation, that morale, that it is like, why should I at least anyway? Why should I continue living if there is no father, there is no mother, there is no uncles, no sisters, no cousins? But with that family structure of platform, we managed to heal each other. We gain trust each other, and then we survived it. We managed to heal and heal our wounds. And also, I think we also gained the commitment towards our new Rwanda, because we at some point we also had to step in and play our role as survivors, as new generations that don't want the same atrocities to happen again. So it's a kind of natural mechanism of coping, but also we also had some issues, some people who didn't manage to follow, who didn't manage to accept, who probably were so weak even before. So we all, every day, every time try to see around, to look around, and also take their hands and move together. But it wasn't always easy.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dimitri, for sharing with us. And I'm sure there will be questions at the end. So please, if you may, stay with us. The last presentation is by Tete, Memory Through Filming. And Tete, the floor is yours. I hope you can hear us, and maybe you can also open your camera, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for giving me this time, and I would like to request, if possible, to use my voice because of the environment I'm in.
No
it's
problem.
a bit difficult to open the video.
No problem.
Well, I'll be short. I'll not take a long time, but I'll start by thanking the previous presenters about what they shared at their presentations. They are so educative and beneficial to all of us, because we are trying to put our efforts together to build our country. And by hearing such testimonies, by contributing, by gaining such knowledge, it helps us to know what is the past and to know what do we need to do to get a better future. Well, without further delays, I would like to start my presentation, which is about memory through filming. And I'll also share my experience and some of my colleagues'
Till I can't no more. Suck my big fat cock. You guys suck.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry, someone
Sorry,
is...
Tete, we're trying to, okay, you can go on, sorry.
Okay, it's fine. I was saying that I'm going to start my presentation, which is about memory through filming. And I'll also share my experience and some of my colleagues' experience in video creation when we were doing short movies for Instagram, but for the memory and keeping the memory alive. Well, before I start by what we did in Renewed Memory Project Rwanda, I'll start by saying that there is need. It is important for keeping the memories in filming. Filming can help in the preservation of memory because we are currently in a digitalized world, and the only thing we can do is to adapt to the change. And then by adapting to that change is using what we have, or using those techniques or technology to contribute to the preservation of the memory. Why am I saying this? Because we can see that there are so many videos from the past that we see now, which were kept for different purposes, educative or anything. So if we do filming with the purpose of educating future generations, it can stay for a long time, not only stay for a long time, but because these generations use media, use social media for different things, they'll find those videos on social medias, and it can help them to learn about what happened to our country and to preserve the memory, and also to work hard for a better future. Well, going through what we did, we made short videos, which were based on true testimonies of what happened in the genocide perpetrated against the Tutsi in 1994, and others were based on different topics that contributes to keeping the memory alive and keep building our country. Well, when we were shooting something, some of the things that we learned when you are shooting something that happened, somehow it feels real. It feels real. And it was before, when we were writing scripts, we didn't understand the purpose. But when we were filming, we understood the purpose of what we are doing, because we are doing this for ourselves and for the future generation, and as well as for building our country. Well, videos give you that nostalgic feeling and transport you back in time. Well, most of us were not born yet in 1994. Most of the students who did the projects, we were 25 with 5 different teams. And I guess we all young. Maybe a few of us were born in 1994, but the majority of us were not born in 1994. So doing that in one way or another made us learn about our past and also made us take into consideration what we can do as the youth to contribute to the future of our country. Well, as I was saying that videos can give you that nostalgic feeling. Sometimes when we were shooting, and you know, when you're shooting, you have to share your emotions to the public. I mean, to the people who will view the video. And when trying to show the emotions, sometimes you would think about what were people going through into that time. It was terrible, knowing that it's not a movie, it's something that is real, it's something that is happening, and it's something that you never know if you'll be alive or you will die, but you were fighting for your life to live and to see another day. So it made us think that humanity is key in everything. Humanity is everything that matters, and nobody would want to see his loved one, or nobody would love to see someone being killed. So we felt that deep, and we wanted to contribute and to contribute that this thing that happened, the genocide against the Tutsi that happened in 1994, cannot happen and will never happen again in Rwanda. Well, some of the experiences learned because we were shooting, and the 25 students that were doing these projects are from mass media and communication. We learned a lot about the history of our country, but as well as learning about what we do mostly in our field as communication experts, as journalists, as PR practitioners, and everything. Some of the experiences, as I was saying, we learned how to film, we learned how to edit, we learned teamwork. We worked very closely, we connected. When you are working with people, you connect and you see the importance of working together and trying your best to make something happen. We worked day and night for the videos, and it made us realize that if we use the same strength that we were using to provide, to shoot those videos, and if we use the same strength to build our country, we can go further than where we are now. Well, we also learned that we can use what we have. Our talents, or not only our talents, the knowledge we have in contributing in one way or another to the development of our country. It is the 28th time that we are commemorating the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, and we are trying our best to build a better future, a future with a better future that we want, and we want the future generations to grow in. Well, our leaders have set a good example, and we are looking forward not to disappoint them, but we are contributing to what they did so that we can build a better country. Another thing that I can say is that remembering does not mean holding a grudge against someone, but it means keeping in mind what happened so that we can learn from it, and that we can say that it can never happen, to work so that it can never happen again. Another thing is, by closing my presentation, is that our leaders are leading with integrity. They are trying their best to build our country, and they are serving with generosity, humility, and humanity. So what I'm trying to say here is that whenever I'm assigned something to do or somebody else is doing something, when you are doing your work properly, when you are doing what you're supposed to do, you are contributing to your country. And when you're doing something that is different from what you are supposed to do, you are destroying your country. And I want to reflect on this. When the country has good things, you benefit from it. And when the country is passing through hard times or bad or negative things, you also get affected. So we all want a better world, a better Rwanda, a better future. We must do our best to contribute through the talents that we have. If I am a future communication expert, if I am a future leader, if I am a future someone to be, what can I do to preserve the memory and keep it alive and preserve what has been achieved? And I would end by thanking our country for always showing us the good example, because since we were kids, since we were born, they always told us about what happened, but not in a way to make us angry or anything, but they taught us so that we can be better people with a better mindset, with a better future, so that we can build our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ntete. It was really interesting because we opened with Pini and Yaron presenting the project in memory through videos created by young men and women in both Israel and Rwanda. And obviously the very big global discussion about 2 years ago with Eva's story. If you remember, it was probably the first and most known and widespread Instagram short piece about the Holocaust, and it really generated a lot of discussions if it is an appropriate way to remember such horrific events. And I think that renewed memory and the project that all of you have taken part really is the answer, that there are no wrong ways of keeping memory. There are different ways, there are different modalities of remembering, and each and everyone has to choose. And before I open the floor, Ntete, you kept saying, if I will be the future communication expert, if I'm going to be the future, at least from what I heard, it's not the if question, it's the when question. And I'm sure you are going to be part of the leadership of Rwanda. So thank you very much for your participation. And at this point, I would like to open the floor for questions from anybody who is participating here to any one of the presenters. So please, if you would like to raise your hand or put a hand sign on your screen, we would be happy to give you the floor.
Yes, Amit, you can go ahead.
I don't really have it's not exactly a question, it's just something that I thought about. First of all, the similarity of all the things that also we know about from the Holocaust that we experienced, from how the people reacted to this and how the parents talked about. But second, I just wanted to say that I really liked what the last speaker said about not keeping a grudge, but it doesn't mean that you can't remember. That just wanted to say that I really like that part and that note.
Thank you, Amit. I would like to share a question that any one of the presenters that would like to speak about. Our first presenter, Laurette, spoke about the fact that some of the criminals are being released nowadays, 28 years after the genocide, going back, living in villages and towns near their victims' families. How is this dealt in within today's Rwanda? The fact that victims and their enemies are living side by side.
Sorry, I didn't get you very well.
Laurette, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I didn't get your question very well.
If you can expand a bit about the fact that some of the criminals who perpetuated the genocide are now being released, and you as the second generation, but also those who survived, have to live with them, accept them being back into society, which is a huge difference between Israel and the German perpetrators, for example. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
It's very different, and I think the uniqueness of Rwanda and Rwandans, of how they are living with the perpetrators after their sentences, their years of imprisonment. And after that, I think there is the ability of those who are being released of learning and catching up with the development of Rwanda, especially in the unity and rebuilding the unity and peace of Rwanda. So survivors are catching up also and learning how to confront themselves and adopt the culture of resilience through living with those perpetrators and working with them in their usual life. So it's the ability and the hard work and the energy and the capacity of those who are being released and the survivors and the government of Rwanda for the unity and peace programs and different educational systems that continue to help them to live very well in their unity, understanding that all they are one and they have to live the past and work for the future.
Thank you, Laurette.
You're welcome.
Irit? Irit?
Yeah, it's not me, right? Okay. Okay, so I would like to ask everybody, but maybe especially Ines, you mentioned the difference between your mother and your father. You said that your mother told you many stories, while your father mostly show you films. And as a second generation to Holocaust survivors, I have a genuine interest in the question, is there a difference between what mother and father remember and tell their children about their experience? Can you tell me if you feel the difference between, or maybe just my case, maybe it's not something that's common to everybody.
Silent memory, Irit.
Here, maybe here is
Oh,
Ines.
Ines is back.
Thank you. I do not think that there's a big difference in what a mother or a father remembers, and especially if they're both Rwandans and if they were both present at the same time. For me, my father was not really present during, well, he was not in the country when it all happened. I think he was there for a few times, and then he was in Congo for during that time. And I don't really know why, but I figured out that the reason why he doesn't really talk about what happened is because maybe he doesn't remember, or he doesn't feel ready to share yet what happened. And on difference, I don't think there is a big difference between fathers and mothers, because from what I've learned, from what I've heard, a lot of parents were here during that same time. What can be very different is the experience that they have encountered during the time. Maybe the father was fleeing on his own with his family, and the mother was fleeing on her own with her family. So they might have had a different experience on fleeing the country or surviving, but what they saw, what they heard is the same thing because they were in the same countries. And it all comes up on how they tell their stories to their children. They choose to tell them what they have encountered. Some even choose to leave out some things for the safety of their children, but what the stories that they all tell, they are kind of similar, and there are some you will even find having the same survivor story because they may have fled to a certain same place, or they were at the same place without even knowing. Parents during that time, some parents were together during the time, and some others met after the genocide, maybe like after 1 year after the.
Okay, thank you very much, Ines. Any other question?
Yes, I would like to ask. In the beginning of this meeting, we heard that tomorrow is the International Day of Reflection on the Genocide in Rwanda, and I would like to ask you, whoever is here, Laurette or Ines, how do you keep the memory in a national way? What ceremonies do you have in this day? How do you make the memory alive?
I can answer. As a country, we have a holiday as a country to reflect and remember. We also have programs passing on by the television, the radios, all talking about the commemoration. There are so many programs that offers on discussions on what happened during the genocide and on how to reflect as Rwandans. Personally, I am a journalist, so I spend my most times writing articles on the commemoration. So I believe I take time to reflect and remember through hearing testimonies from the victims and even the survivors, and also I take time to reflect as I write. I talk to different people who were present at the time to get an image and their own perspective, but I also talk to the youth to get to know how they are seeing Rwanda now, how they are seeing the way they are seeing Rwanda moving, and how they reflect, what is remembering what does remembering means to them, and all those kind of things. And I also do watch some documentaries, which is a very common thing for every young person like me. And also we have a lot of programs going on through the commemoration week, which are what we call it's a night of commemorating, where we now it's not going to happen due to the pandemic, but we will have to attend it on the television and the radio. So it's basically where the survivors share their stories. We even get to listen to reconciliation stories. We get to listen to songs. We watch movies of some well-known filmmakers that they met about the genocide. And also even the youth get to organize their own thing. As I've mentioned before, there is an event that goes on yearly. It's called Trust, where the youth gets to share their poems, their stories, their songs, the films that they've produced. And also we get to discuss with the elders and officials, and everyone that is above us. So we get to reflect, we get to provide suggestions, to provide ideas, and we participate on what can be done to keep on Rwanda moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ines. Lilian has a question. Lilian, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm sorry, I can't put on the video. I'm at work and I'm in the hospital. So my question goes to Dimitri. She was talking about the mechanisms that were put down and it looked like it helped a lot. So I was questioning if those kind of mechanisms, they're going to be continuing for the second generation, as we're seeing the second generation of the genocide survivors. They're as much suffering, not as the first ones, but at least they're also suffering. We could see that through other people that have lived genocide, or even in the younger people today. So the same mechanism put together for those coming generations, so that the nation or the coming generation will be not what I would call a better generation, if I may say so. So I don't know if she's still around and if she's got my question. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for putting up such an educative talk and very rich. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lilian. Dimitri, are you still with us? Maybe Laurette, because Laurette also spoke about the transition of trauma and the development of resilience. So
hello, yes. Do you hear me?
Good.
Hello.
Yes, we hear you.
Hi, do you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hello. Do you hear me? Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Dimitri, maybe you would like to answer the question.
Hello. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
I am sorry, I'm having a bad internet. But coming back to the previous questions before Lillian. I just wanted to add on what my friend said. As for the national program of genocide commemoration, we have at all levels plans of reflection, of testimonies, of compassion and help to vulnerable survivors. And this goes from national level to the grassroots, meaning the cells where we live. We all get together. We usually have a survivor give us a testimony. We also have someone to inform on the genocide, how it started, how it was, and then we reach the level of reconciliation needed, and the tolerance we need. That goes also back to the question of perpetrators when they are free out into their families. The way we as victims and survivors, how do we receive them? How do we help them again live together for a sustainable peace and reconciliation of the nation? So we see ourselves being together, perpetrators and survivors for a common goal. And this is very, very much thanks to the Government of Unity and Reconciliation, because they have put a lot of efforts in that area, and we see, and everything brought us to see that we can't live without reconciliating ourselves, forgiving, and so on and so forth. For the Lillian questions, I think that those mechanisms will always be there, but different. They will be there by different because our kids have parents. Our kids have a good country, which is not separating anymore, which is not putting any chance for people to which is giving same chances, same opportunities to people, and which is giving equal opportunities and having all of them feeling or acting as responsible citizens. So I think for me and for my friends, survivors, we see, I see mostly our kids being more practical and pragmatic than us, because like I said, they have a country which is a good place to live. This is very different from us. If something happens, they still have parents, they have local authorities who are understandable and who can help them. So mechanism will be there, but not as hard as as for us in our time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dimitri. Any question before we wrap up? So once again, I would really like to thank each and every one of you, both in Israel, Rwanda, and other places from around the world that have joined us, and thank all the participants in this joint project. Tel Aviv University African Studies, Renewed Memory Organization, GLG, and the University of Mount Kenya in Rwanda, and each and every one of the speakers who really devoted much time, energy, thought, and sensitivity in sharing their stories. And as I said in the beginning, just 28 years ago today, April 6th, the genocide against the Tutsi has started. And there is, I think, no other meaningful way that we could have reflected together about the genocide against the Tutsi than this unique meeting, hearing survivors themselves, second generation and others. And at least for you, our Rwandan friends, I think that the Israeli Jewish participants in this meeting can really understand and share a lot of the insights and emotions that you have shared with us. So we truly appreciate it. And hopefully the saying never again will be a reality rather than just a slogan. And I will end with this wishful thought. So thank you very much, everybody. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.